I was working a high-paying job. I was living in New York. I had just come out of one of the top business schools in the world, and I had a large amount of student loan debt. And I knew that my financial life was honestly in shambles. I would make a lot of money, and then I would spend a lot of money. I'd make a lot of money, spend a lot of money. This idea of intergenerational thinking is not something that modern people are doing right now. Modern people are like, what can I get? It's all about me, me, me. Now. I had $330,000 in debt. I had no assets. I had no real plan for the future. But then I felt like I needed to start tithing. God was going to lead me through it. I'm not here to get more for me. I am here because I know it's what's right, and I know it's what you've called me to do.
If you're curious about what is trending in Christian education, you've come to the right place. Hi, I'm Dalena Wallace, homeschool mom, microschool leader, and education missionary. And this is Wise and Otherwise, where we are sharing real stories from the front lines of a growing movement in Christian education. Stories of pastors, parents, and everyday believers stepping up in new ways to shape the next generation. From microschools to school boards, we'll explore how the church can lead in education again, creatively, affordably, and in true partnership with families. If you've ever wondered what role you can play, I hope these conversations help you find your next step. It is wise for the church to get involved in leading education. Otherwise, who will? Come on, Christians, let's lead the way and redeem education for the glory of God. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Wise and Otherwise. Today, I have with me Analyssa Noe. She's in Wetmore, Kansas. She is with Cardinal Learning Academy. Analyssa, thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely, Deena. Excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So you and I have been talking for years now about a lot of things, about innovative education, about these unique, creative Christian learning environments, micro schools, the hybrid model. We're just talking about how we can reform education. And this topic of stewardship comes up time and time again. We're both believers. We love the Lord. We are serving Him. We're trying to serve Him with all of our being, with all of our talents and our time and our energy and our efforts. And we believe in this idea of stewardship. I invited Analyssa to join me today for this conversation here on our podcast. The last couple of weeks, Emmy and I have been kind of setting the stage and laying foundation for biblical premise of stewardship and what scripture has to say about what we do with what the Lord's given us. And in a couple more weeks here, in the next episode, we're actually going to be interviewing, his name is Father Lees. He is I believe he's like the pastor of stewardship with the Catholic Wichita Diocese. And so we're just continuing on this theme. And the idea of stewardship is really important. And so, Analyssa, let's get into this. Let's share with our audience some examples in your life. You have some wonderful testimonies of how the Lord has led you in this. What does stewardship look like for you currently? And then we'll talk about how He led you to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bible tells us that whenever we're working at something, we should work at it with all of our heart, all of our mind, and all of our soul. And we should work as if we're working for the Lord. And I made what my non-believing friends think is a crazy decision because I left a high-paying job in the corporate world. I was working with, well, I probably shouldn't say where I was working, but I had a really exciting job and making a lot of money. But I started to feel this call and this pull, which was leading me towards leaving that behind and taking the time and the talent that I have and investing that in discipling students and helping to lead families and being a real part of the mission that God has given us to go out and make disciples of all people. And so I've left my job behind, and now I'm focused solely and 100% on building this community and building this innovative education system and trying to make sure that we're putting our Christianity into action and actually living according to our values in the way that we're stewarding the gifts that we have and the things that we're spending our time on.
Yeah, you absolutely are. And I've been to your school and, we've had some conversations, and I see just knowing a little bit about your career, your background, and what you had been doing before and how the Lord called you into this. It's so inspiring. And I feel like it's just a good testimony of how we listen and how we're faithful to the Lord. So tell us a little bit about the beginning of this journey. What, I guess maybe you were already saying a little bit about what you were
Sure.
doing, but what
Mhm.
has it looked like as you've been growing in
Mhm.
stewardship?
Yeah. I think that the the biblical principles that are in action here are appropriately ordering the desires of your heart. And when I lived according to the world standards, my goals in life were get a high paying job, get a fancy house, have a fancy life, and accumulate wealth, and then pass that wealth on to the next generation because that's good too. And this is what the world would tell you to do, that accumulating wealth is the mission and the goal. And what the Bible teaches is that those who are willing to give up their life will find it. And that if you are willing to follow God's instructions, if you are willing to follow God's leading and to put the principles of the Bible into practice into your life, that it will produce a fruit that is above and beyond what you could have ever imagined, and that God can bless you in ways that are beyond what you could ever ask, imagine, or think. And as I've made this, again, sort of drastic decision to leave my high paying job and come to a place where I don't really have an income, right now I'm living off of $1,200 a month and having the time of my life really serving this community. And I am being extraordinarily blessed by that. Extraordinarily. And I can't tell you the amount of peace that I feel, the amount of blessing and accomplishment that I feel. And it's cool to see, like, I'm not storing up for myself treasures that are going to fade away and crumble, but I'm storing up for myself treasures in heaven, which are greater and richer and more eternal. And I think it's hard for non-Christian people to understand that because they want to look at the numbers and they want to look at what strategically makes sense for the benefit of self. But if you're willing to take the risk and jump out of that airplane and put others before yourself, God will bless you for those things. He'll bless you for the obedience. He'll bless you for taking the risk. And I have found, I don't believe in prosperity gospel. I don't, but I have found that my willingness to let go of what I thought I needed and work towards what God has given me and is showing me, I've been blessed beyond measure by taking those choices and making those risks that are counter to what the world would teach in terms of stewardship or achievement or success.
Yeah. And what I find so interesting, what the Lord's doing in your heart and in your life is what I've been seeing. It seems like this, if God has trends, which I don't know if he does,
Mhm,
but like
mhm.
to me, what I've been seeing really coming to the surface in recent years, like since 2020, let's just say,
Yeah.
since COVID, is that he's been calling people into the area of education
Mhm.
where they were never even interested or involved in education before. That's the case for you, right?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I have a master's in business administration, worked in the corporate world of consulting for about 10 years, worked across all sorts of private industry, never thought about K through 12 education at all in any way, certainly never imagined being a teacher, and certainly never imagined opening a school or having a desire to honestly be even a little bitty tiny part of it. Yeah, it's amazing how God works, and it's amazing how he will pull different people from different places, different resources from different places, and just kind of bring all of that into existence in order to carry forth whatever it is that he's trying to get into the earth. And I agree with you. I think he's trying to get Christian education into the earth. And if you look around, we need it. We really need it.
Right. And it's really beautiful, like only God can do. And like what his word says, where the body of Christ, works together, we all bring something, we all have something to contribute.
Mhm,
And even those who never thought that education was like in their wheelhouse, like, well, that's not really my thing. I don't really
mhm,
do anything with this. But you do, like, you can contribute, you can participate, you can give. Like the Catholic Diocese in Wichita so beautifully
mhm,
says, they state, give of your time, talent, and treasure. In
mhm,
those three ways, we can be good stewards of what the Lord has given us. So it might not always be financial, even though those, there are many people, several that I know of, who the Lord has blessed them financially, blessed them with abundance, and
mhm,
blessed them with success. And they
mhm,
recognize their part in this work.
mhm,
And I've had a gentleman tell me, like, I can't be out there doing what you're doing, but you can't do it without me, without the finances that the
Mhm.
Lord has given to me. And
Mhm.
so even, his acknowledgement of that, it's
Mhm.
sincere, it's
Yeah,
true, it's
absolutely.
100% spot on.
Mhm.
You know, can't a school costs money,
Mhm.
education costs money, ministry costs money.
Mhm.
So for the individuals who say, well, I can't necessarily give of my time or my talent, but I can give of my treasure, that's beautiful. It's
Mhm.
amazing. I love how he does that with the body of Christ.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Agree with that 100%. Yep.
Tell me some examples as you were younger in your faith, because
Mhm.
you've told me that you haven't always been a believer, but then
Mhm.
you became a Christian, you were converted, gave your life to the Lord. And as you started working this idea of stewardship in your life, what
Mhm.
are some examples where you saw him training you in this?
Yeah, absolutely. Without getting too much into the details, when Jesus came to get me, I had a lot of things in my life that had to be cleared out and cleaned up. And God is gracious and generous in recognizing that you are exactly where you are. He calls you from that place, but then if you're really going to follow him, it's obviously going to lead to transformation and change. And so one of the first things that I felt like I needed to get my life in order around was somewhat worldly, but it was coming from that Christian pull, the biblical pull, the leading of God, and that was to get my finances in order. So I was working a high paying job. I was living in New York. I had just come out of one of the top business schools in the world, and I had a large amount of student loan debt. And I knew that my financial life was honestly in shambles. And I started walking around and telling my friends, I'm going to start a blog, I'm going to start a podcast, and I'm going to call it, I Make Way Too Much Money to Be This Poor. And that was the honest truth because I would make a lot of money and then I would spend a lot of money. I'd make a lot of money, spend a lot of money. And so as I took this step forward to get my finances in order, I consolidated my student loan debt and did some things in that area. But then I felt like I needed to start tithing. And a non-Christian person or someone who didn't grow up in the church, this is like a painful, almost icky type of word if you haven't lived it. And so the idea of I'm going to give how much money to the church? And then you have to go, and I don't even really know where it's going to go. And then you just want me to do this and close my eyes and pray about it. That seems weird. Christians are weird, right? But what I found is in being obedient to that and walking through that, it created a level of discipline in me and self control that I honestly didn't have in my pre Christian life. And it led me to do things like budgeting that I hadn't done before. It led me to monitor my spending like I hadn't done before. And it led me to think about investing things in a different way, in a more strategic way. And so yeah, it was just like this big training ground where I had to learn how to sort of deny the immediate desires of the flesh to build and think about tomorrow. And this idea of intergenerational thinking is not something that modern people are doing right now. Modern people are like, what can I get? What can I do for my family? What can I create for myself? How can I get the best Instagram feed and the best TikTok videos? And like, it's all about me, 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 now, 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 now. But the Bible is radical in that it says it wants you to think not just about now, but it wants you to think about 100 years from now. It wants you to think about people that you don't know. And when you build and when you steward and when you look over stuff, it's not just about here, but it's about there. It's not just about you, but it's about them. And this is radical for a non-believer. This is radical for someone who isn't trained in Christianity. And so for me, the very act of becoming a tither just created a level of self-discipline and self-control and understanding about stewardship that just wasn't there before. It just
Yeah.
wasn't there before. And so doing things like that the Bible tells you to do, it's in there for a reason. It's not
Yeah.
because God needs your money. It's in there because it changes your heart.
Yes. Do you have other examples here since you have been operating your school or in the years leading up to launching your school where the Lord has rewarded you or shown his faithfulness through you being faithful? What's that looked like for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you want to
Yes.
think about it for a minute, that's
No,
okay.
no, I
Do you have
don't.
it?
I'm afraid to say these things out loud because they're kind of embarrassing. But when I started this journey, I had $330,000 in debt. So mostly student loan debt, but a large amount of debt. I had no assets. I had no real plan for the future. And so again, the reason I took these steps forward was a worldly concern, but it was a biblical leading for how to deal with it. And by the grace of God, through this obedience, I knew the whole way that if I was going to be obedient in this area, God was going to lead me through it and lead me past it. And so I was able to pay down all of that student loan debt within, I know it was 3 years or it might have been four, close to four. So I paid it down in 4 years. And then on the other side of that, and I got a whole bunch of miracle stories about blessings of money here and blessings of unexpected money there. And just, recognizing that, wow, this whole generosity mindset really flows. But I paid off all of that student loan debt, and then again, because it's training, because it's discipleship, on the other side of that, then I started to live well below my means. The reason I can live off of $1,200 per month now is because I was living off of $1,200 per month when I had way more than that. And so I was able to keep my living low, and then I was just stacking money really quickly. And what that ultimately led me to was a place where I could leave my job and not be afraid. And
Mm,
I believe very much so that I'm here on assignment and I'm doing something that's important as part of my life purpose and plan that God has for my life. And so the only way that that was possible is because I was willing to be faithful in this tithing process,
mm.
this debt pay down process, and then it allowed me to accumulate enough of a cushion that I could say, yeah, I'm going to walk away from my job and I'm not going to look back because I know I can live for this many months with no impact. And I'm sure in that many months, I'll have a plan by then. And so it's financial freedom that has come from really, the world would say, sort of stupid financial decision making back here really led me to a place of financial freedom out here. And the blessing for that is tremendous. It's
Yeah.
tremendous. And I'm free. I'm I'm debt free and I am working for the Lord and I'm not on 5 a.m. conference calls with Europe anymore. I mean, I'm free.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the
Amazing.
blessings are abundant.
Yes.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of Wise and Otherwise. We'd like to ask you to take a minute and please rate and review our podcast so that others can learn more about us. Thanks.
Yes. And I love the example of really your life. I really love the example of your life
Mhm,
and
mhm,
what the Lord has done, because of all three of those things, you are giving of your time, of your
mhm,
talent, and of
mhm,
your treasure. And
mhm,
you're giving of your treasure in the form of like sacrificially doing this work when you could be
mhm.
making so much more money.
Right.
Um, and so just to see you as just it's inspiring. I really appreciate
Yeah.
this story. I want others to hear of what God has done and is doing through you to impact the kingdom, which
Mhm,
there's no greater investment for us
mhm,
as people, as believers, as
mhm,
lovers of God. There's no greater investment than for us to pour out our lives into growing his kingdom and doing his kingdom work. I know you know that. So
Yes.
I have a really, for me, it's a pretty cool story. It's very personal into the work that I do and
Mm,
involving my family. But so I work with and support school founders and those who are blessing homeschool moms and homeschool families. They're providing services, hybrid schools, whatever it is, like they're
mhm,
tutoring, teaching, all the things that me personally, as a homeschool mom, the things that I value, the things that I long for, it's a
mhm,
personal pain point for me because I am
mhm,
lacking in that area just because of the area I live in geographically, very small town. We don't have a lot of
mhm,
options. So I feel this need. It's like a felt need that I have. And yeah, I continue to pour into the broader movement, investing in others who are doing this work because I believe in it so much, because I need it so much, because
mhm,
I feel it so
mhm,
much. And
mhm,
so, one example, this just often happens. I will go and visit a school that happens to not be in the town where I live. And so, it's not the school for my kids, it's not the solution for my family, and it's not meeting my needs in any way. But I will be
mhm,
visiting these schools in other states or other parts of Kansas or whatever. And I will get back in my car and I will just be like, Lord, what about my kids?
Yeah.
What about my needs?
Mhm,
What about
mhm.
I need solutions, I need answers, I need support,
Yeah.
I need help.
Yeah.
And so I last year, this happened in the fall of last year, I was starting to plan a retreat. And I
Mhm.
was planning it on behalf of these school founders and educators. I wanted to support them, encourage them in their work.
Yeah.
So I started planning this retreat, and I knew of the retreat center where we were going to be going. And so I just was quickly looking up on Google Maps, like, oh, type in, it's called Morning Star Ranch.
Mhm.
And so I needed to call them. And so I type in Morning Star, and this school came up, Morning Star Christian Academy. And I was like, that's funny. And in my line of work with what I do, I'm always learning about and visiting these schools
Mhm.
anywhere around me. And I had never heard of this school before.
Mhm.
And it was right in Wichita, Kansas. And I'm like, what is this Morning Star school?
Mhm.
So, anyways, I'm out pouring into, wanting to invest in these educators and stuff. And I call this ministry, this Morning Star Christian School. And it turns out that was exactly what I needed at that time for my own kids.
Mm.
Was able to offer online courses and instruction for my kids. And it
Mhm.
has been just an incredible blessing. I hate telling people
Yes.
actually right now because it was a hidden
Yes.
gem. And I'm like, I hope, like, she's just amazing. I found
Right.
her.
Right.
She's really, but the Lord, I knew, like, I just knew
Yeah.
that I knew that I knew that was
Yeah.
his way of answering
Mhm.
my prayer and rewarding me for my investment in others
Mhm.
and educators and things. And he,
Yes.
Analyssa, I know I've talked to you about this. I've talked to you
Yes.
about like needs that
Yes.
I feel for my kids and my family.
Yeah.
And so it was
Yeah.
like, he's not going to leave us. He's not going to
Mm.
let us like suffer and be lacking. And if we are,
Mhm.
it's because he's going to use that
Right.
to work his purposes in us and to show his
Mhm.
glory. And
Mhm.
to me, that was just like flexing his muscle
Yeah.
and just showing off and just
So
being
good.
like,
So good. So good.
like,
Your
oh,
your your Father on earth knows how to give good gifts. How much more does your Father in heaven? I love that story. And I think about it all the time, honestly, because I've been discipled by multiple books and resources and pastors and sermons. And one of the teachings that I listened to early on in my journey talked about how if you're not willing to invest in the vision of someone else, in the needs of someone else, then it's really hard for God to give you blessings in those areas or to give you your own vision. And there's something about the process of submission and obedience that God requires of us before that big blessing comes. And every child wants the reward without the work, right? But when you are willing to be submissive in obedience to other people's needs, to other people's visions, it just shows God like, hey, I'm ready because I'm not here to serve myself. I'm not here to get more for me. I am here because I know it's what's right and I know it's what you've called me to do. And when you open up your heart like that, that's a fertile ground for God to sow seeds and bring blessing and abundance. And so I love that story. And I think it's true. I think that's one of the principles that is inherent in the earth. And it's one of the principles of generosity, giving, and stewardship that that's the way it works.
that's
And
the way
so
it works. That's the
God
way it
bless you.
I love
Congratulations.
it.
Mhm.
Yes, yes, I love it. Okay, so I think you and I are going to continue this conversation, and
Absolutely.
let's wrap up today's podcast here, and let's just leave it right now with this eagerness, I guess, really is
Mm.
we're stirring up this desire in all of us, hopefully in all of our listeners, of like, what
Mhm.
can the Lord do? What will the Lord do? What does this word say when we're
Yes.
faithful with what he's given us, whether it be our time, our talent, or our treasure? And we're going to dive into this a little bit more. What does this mean in education? What can this look like when the church, for example, comes alongside and sees the opportunity to be invested in and engaged in education? What's it look like when the church stewards what the Lord has given as a church, what the Lord has given to them? So, do you have any closing words here? Anything else to share before we hop off?
I'm just so excited to be a part of this conversation. The idea that stewardship can change the world seems conservative, but it's actually quite radical. And I'm super excited to get to have this conversation with you. And I'm super excited to encourage giving and the investment in Christian education because it's what our families need. And we know that God is going to bless it. And so just thank you, Dalena, for making this possible and allowing us to have this conversation. And I just pray that as we go forward, God will continue to move among his people. So thank you for everything that you do.
Yes, it's great. Okay, we will continue next time. Thank you to our listeners and have a good night.